Hey everybody. In our first seminar session, we did some live coding, and I did record it, but unfortunately I had some technical problems and the audio is all garbled. So here's an attempt to re-record that part for those of you who missed it, or for those of you who want to review it and try it again. One of the things we did was we looked at this copy that you can get on the internet of the very first computer game. This is really the first video game. It was made in 1962 on a PDP-1 computer. Those computers were about as big as a car. You needed a whole room to put the single computer in. And, you know, for the very first video game, it's not bad. You use W to shoot from your little spaceship. You use S to thrust. There's this star in the middle that draws you in with gravity, and if you fall into the star, you explode. And there's another spaceship trying to kill you. Oh, I just exploded. That's all right, it'll give me another life. Anyway, what we wanted to do with the live coding was begin to write some of the code just in Scratch, a way to prototype it, so that we could move a spaceship around like this. Our first task was just to move a spaceship on the screen. Boom. All right, I got them. So there's a link in the slides for a file called Spaceship Begin. I'm going to use a copy of it here. And when you come to that file, if you hit the green flag here, which is typically how you start a program running in Scratch, you're going to notice that there's a spaceship and it doesn't do anything. And that's okay. That's exactly how it should be. We're going to make it do stuff with our coding. So what you want to do is go inside. So we're going to click the See Inside button. And what we've got here is three basic panels. Over here on the far right, this square, that's the window where stuff happens. So this would be the screen of your game. This big blank area here is to assemble the code, and we know it's for the spaceship because there's this little spaceship image up here kind of faded out. And then on the far left, we have all of these different kinds of commands, and they're organized with these buttons. So if you want to go to events, we'll be doing that very soon. You click on events. If you want to go to variables, we'll be doing that. You click on variables and so forth. So the very first thing we wanted to do was to be able to push some buttons and move this spaceship image around the screen. When you push a button, that's something called an event. The key down or key up message sent by the computer is an event, something that happens, and we want to respond to that event. So we're going to go to events. And there's a when green flag clicked. That's stuff you do when you start the program. We'll use that in a minute. And then there's this when space key pressed. And you might start looking for where's the arrow key, etc. They're all here. This is any key, and you can change them. So you click on that, and it'll come up with a big menu. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to say when the up arrow is clicked, I want this to go up. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to need a variable first. We want to keep track of the X and the Y position. We're going to call the X moving left and right and the Y moving up and down. So I'm going to make a variable for its X position and its Y position. In Scratch, you can see right now it tells us where the spaceship is. It's at 0, 0. That's right in the middle of the screen. If I change the X to 100, it moves over to the right. If I change it to negative 100, it moves over to the left. On the Y, same thing. If I change that to 100, it moves closer to the top. And if I change that to negative 100, it's going to go closer to the bottom. So we want the Y value to go up when it goes up, and when the spaceship goes up, and the Y value to go down and get negative when the spaceship goes down. So I'm going to make a variable. And I know those of you who have done Scratch before, you know there's built-in variables for X and Y. We're going to ignore those for right now. We're just going to make our own because I want you to know how to make a variable. So what I did here is I pressed on the variable button here on the far left, and then under variables there's a button that says make a variable. When you do that, the first thing it asks you is a name. We're going to call this one X position, although you could call it anything you want. I think it's good practice to give variables names that are very obvious. This is going to keep track of the X position of our spaceship, so that's what I'm going to call it. I'm also going to name it for this sprite only. It doesn't really matter in this case because there's only one sprite in this Scratch, but we're going to want this position to apply only to this sprite. Now I've got this variable x position, and you can see under variables I've got a whole bunch of blocks now that have x position in them. I also want one for y position. So I'm going to do the same thing, click on make a variable, and make a variable called y position. Again, it's going to be for that sprite. All right. Now I've got my up arrow key press event out here. When I press that, I want to change the y position. And when I look down at my blocks here, I see change, but it says x position. Again, I can just click there and get a list of any of the variables that I've made. So there we go. I'm going to drag this out here. We're going to change, and this we're going to do y position by 1. What that does is it adds 1. And let's actually just try this with the up arrow. Now look on the screen here. When you make a variable, by default, you get these little places to keep track of the numbers in them. And this is really good when you're starting program, to keep track of those numbers. You can get rid of those if you don't want them on the screen by unchecking these checkboxes. I'm going to leave them up. And you can see that the y position variable is going up as I click the arrow. You can see this whole piece gets highlighted, so you know that code has been activated. However, the position of the spaceship's not changing at all. And here's what I'm going to do for that. All I've really done here is made a variable, and now I'm changing it with a key press. If I want to relate that to the position of the spaceship, I need to actually move the spaceship according to this variable. So I'm going to go back to events, and I'm going to grab that when the green flag is clicked. And then I'm going to go to control and grab a forever loop. You're going to be using a lot of forever loops when you make games. A typical computer program is something that has a loop that goes over and over and over again, whether that's to draw things on the screen, or to move bullets across the screen, or to check the score. It happens usually inside a forever loop, or some kind of loop that goes on and on. So this is a pretty typical structure. So when the green flag is clicked, we're going to start this forever loop, and it's going to do what's in the forever loop over and over again until we tell it to stop. So what do I want in here? Well, I want to update the position of this spaceship. So I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to choose the block go to XY. And you can see right now this just has numbers in it. And in fact, I'm going to go take this again, go to XY, and I'm going to, before the forever loop, I'm going to set it to 0, 0, so that whenever I click on this, the green flag, the spaceship goes back to the middle again to start, and then the forever loop starts. So this is the part that resets it when you begin, and this is the part that updates it according to the keys. But I don't want it to go to x negative 100 and y negative 100. I want it to go to the x position and y position. So I'm going to go back to my variables button and get x position and just drag it and drop it right there, and y position and drag it and drop it right there. Now, if I click this green flag, first of all, the spaceship should go to 0, 0. And then, if I press the up arrow, it should start going up. So, let's see if we can do this. So there's 0, 0. I'm going to start pressing the up arrow. Hey, my spaceship's going up. What do you know? Now, it only goes up, so I need more of these event blocks here. So I'm going to go back to events. I'm going to shove this one down out of the way a little bit. We'll come back to that one later. I'm going to grab this when space key is pressed again and add a down arrow. And then I'll go to variables, and I want to change, and I want this to be the y position. So I'll choose y position, and we want negative 1 because we want it to go in the opposite direction when you press the down arrow. So let's try going back to 0, 0 again. Aha, now I can press the down arrow and the spaceship goes down. Beautiful. So let's get left and right in there too. So back to events, when space key is pressed, and we're going to choose right arrow, and I'm going to grab another one, and we'll choose left arrow, and back to variables. And for this one, we're going to do the X position. And we're going to change it by, let's see, right. Yeah, we want positive values for going to the right. And we want negative values for going to the left. All right, I think we're good on that. So let's try moving left and right. Aha! If I alternate, I can go diagonally. But we've got a spaceship that moves. So that's pretty good. And you can see how quick and easy it is to get something going in Scratch. We've got a spaceship that responds to keyboard input, and that's great. However, this spaceship is not moving like the one in Space War. If we look back at Space War, that spaceship keeps moving. And you can turn on the thruster to make it move more in one direction. But when I stop the thruster, it doesn't immediately stop moving. And this is more realistic for how something would move in space. These objects have inertia. That's the property that says that an object that's in motion, it tends to stay in motion. So, next video, we'll figure out how we can make our spaceship move a little bit more like this with some inertia. See you then.